Hello, everyone, and welcome to United Nations Academic Impacts Digital Discussion Series podcast. To begin our new series on the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development, we'll be speaking to Dr. Kelly Bricker, who is a professor and director of park recreation and tourism at the University of Utah, USA. Her specialties include sustainable tourism and nature resource management, with research and teaching interest in ecotourism, community development, and the environmental and social impacts of tourism. Professor Bricker has authored books and published articles on sustainability topics, including ecotourism certification and policy, and health and sustainable tourism relative to communities. Hello, Professor Bricker. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Let's start off with the concept of sustainable tourism. Could you please explain what sustainable tourism is?
I think it's certainly, I can explain where we are today. I think it's an evolving concept, and the more we learn, the more we're better to put definition around it. But it's certainly a process and a journey. And I think it includes principles that entail working together to ensure that the conservation of biodiversity is number one, that we protect the resources on our planet that we need to survive as human beings and as a culture. I also think it's really planned development, and it includes things like minimizing impacts and really ensuring the health and well-being of individuals. And another piece, of course, because it's a business operated entity, is that it ensures economic vitality for communities and all the actors involved in a locale or destination.
Okay, and people often hear two terminologies here, sustainable tourism and ecotourism. Is there any difference between those two terminologies?
Yeah, I think what we have to think about is sustainable tourism as being sort of the large umbrella, the thing that pulls all tourism entities together. And really all tourism, no matter whether it's a cruise or an ecotourism experience or an adventure tourism experience or a visit to a World Heritage Site, really needs to consider sustainability principles. Where ecotourism differs is it's really concerned about nature-based focused tourism. And as such, there are principles that are involved that I think we borrow in the larger picture, like minimizing our impacts, but it certainly includes an element of interpretation and expressing knowledge about a nature-oriented destination or place. And the proceeds from ecotourism really need to contribute back to the conservation mission of the place. So hopefully the dollars I spend on a rafting trip in some way, shape, or form contribute back to the conservation of that river.
And why is sustainable tourism important?
I think it's so important because it's such an enormous economic driver on the planet today, and as such, it has the ability, done well, to improve the quality of people's lives, to help with their well-being. It can also help in conservation efforts. Oftentimes, it can be the impetus or the reason for conservation and help to protect cultural and natural heritage sites. And I think it's, in many ways, people say that tourism can drive peace and understanding. And I think those elements, especially today in this complex, messy world that we live in, are really critical to long-term viability. Without peace and security and understanding, we really can't have tourism.
And you mentioned about stakeholders earlier. We were wondering about the primary key actors in sustainable tourism, who they are.
It's as complex as the tourism industry is itself, and not only includes government and intergovernmental agencies, it includes nonprofits in so many ways, shape, and form, from food sectors to conservation organizations to social justice organizations, and I think it includes definitely the communities and everyone that lives in communities that support tourism or have a tourism element in their destination. So it's a really complex set of actors, of players, of people with some aspect of responsibility, which makes it a long and difficult journey, I think.
What kinds of partnerships exist between these actors, Professor?
There's all kinds of unique partnerships. Oftentimes, we see government and non-governmental partnerships to help protect and preserve for example, our national parks. We have non-government entities that actually raise money on behalf of our national parks in the United States. In other places, we've had unique partnerships between mining companies and river companies to help protect river corridors, working together to look at a sustainable path forward for sustainable development. So you see all kinds of different types of unique partnerships, and I think we really have to be open to the idea of not just the typical partners, but the atypical partners that can actually work together for sustainable development overall.
Okay. And when we are talking about the concept of sustainable tourism, you know that it has gained popularity in both developed and developing countries in recent years. We're wondering if there are any differences in how sustainable tourism is approached in these two settings?
No, I think the primary principles are the same. If you look at organizations like the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, who has worked with many, many stakeholders and people involved in sort of, development and sustainable development to help really encourage tourism as a mechanism for positive change, I think if you look at that concept, the basic principles behind what sustainable tourism is apply across the board. And that's really protecting the earth, ensuring economic viability goes back into local entities, and actually helping to protect cultural and natural heritage, the main reasons that people travel. The other part of that, though, is different entities, different communities have different types of access to financial capital, natural capital, cultural capital, and so we have to ensure that that's fair across the board. People have different access to education, to economic opportunities, and all of those principles are the same. There's just different access to those opportunities in developing versus developed countries. But I think all of the principles apply. I think the idea is that maybe in developed countries we haven't always done it well. So in places where tourism is developing and in new destinations, we have a chance to do it better. So I think those are the primary differences.
Okay. And you mentioned about complexity earlier, and it often comes with challenges. So we were wondering about what are the main challenges in practicing sustainable tourism activities from both consumers and business owners' perspectives.
Yeah, I think some of the challenges come across main topical areas. There's challenges in economic development, ensuring that people have sort of access to markets and access to financial support to actually start or continue small businesses during fluctuating times. So I think sustainability in economic terms happens because of complex societies. We have interesting challenges with terrorism. All of those things impact tourism, ultimately impacting the sustainability of tourism. I think we have challenges in areas in the social sort of inclusion and employment and poverty reduction and how to really use the power of tourism to transform areas that are experiencing challenges in the social realm. Access to education, gender equality, all of those things are really critical challenges that ultimately impact destinations. It's a big challenge that we have to work together with so many different entities and industries and countries to change the way we're currently treating the planet. And these are the large issues that ultimately impact tourism and the sustainability of tourism. So, they're the bigger problems in society today that have an influence on whether we're even able to travel and whether we want to travel. And we know that travel can do good things when done well. So overcoming these larger challenges, working on these larger challenges, and figuring out a way to use the power of economic development and the reasons that people want to travel in the first place, the reasons to protect these destinations for positive change, for helping communities, for helping people with their own individual challenges is what we want to see with this. So lots of challenges out there, but, I think all of us that teach and work in this area see opportunities as well. And that's the whole reason behind the movement towards sustainable tourism, the journey that we're on, the path that we're on, and creating guidelines and structure. And every year we try to think about how do we define it, how do we use it to its best capability.
And lastly, Professor, as you know, this year is the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development. What do you think will be the most effective ways to increase awareness of the concept among travelers?
I think it's making it a top priority in understanding and education. So we have an opportunity. We generally capture tourists on airplanes for hours at end. We have an opportunity to talk about the challenges various destinations face and what they're doing well, what they're doing to help conserve the planet, to help protect local communities and in their cultural heritage and natural heritage. And so we have an opportunity to really market this in an educational way. I think people generally, when they understand that the power of their spending can actually create positive change, I think they're willing to do it. We have to get it out there. We have to make it the sexy thing of this year to focus on and what it can do. People are often surprised when you attach health and well-being to tourism. And ultimately, people have to have opportunities and access and a healthy planet to be healthy people. And so connecting the dots for people and showing them that the power of their spending done well and what done well actually means can create positive change for the places that they're going. And I think people want to feel good about their visits to different places. I think they want to feel welcomed. I think they want to ultimately feel that the spending that they're doing is creating positive change. So somehow we have to connect the dots for folks. It's not always so obvious. We have to tell the story of what sustainable tourism can actually do. And getting those stories out, as you guys are doing and many, many others, is an important concept in educating the traveler.
Wonderful explanation. Thank you again, Professor Bricker. We really appreciate you being with us today, sharing your perspectives on sustainable tourism, and definitely inspiring our listeners.
Thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you for joining UN Academic Impact and our Digital Discussion Series podcast. To learn more about UNAI and our activities, please visit our website at academicimpact.un.org or join the conversation on social media at ImpactUN. Thank you.